Hello and welcome to episode 3 of The World in Motion, or TWIM as the kids are calling it these days. Hope we're all keeping well. This week, to amuse / bore the lot of you, we're going to be discussing an underrated Premier League 11 of the Premier League era. A mix of players totally overlooked, but also some higher quality players who maybe we think could be rated even more highly. But first, to kick us off, we're going to tell you interested folk what we've all been up to, and Joe's gonna weave a web of intrigue of some funny footballing names.
Yes.
Well, what have we all been up to then, folks, over the last couple of weeks? Rob, do you want to kick us off with some of your interesting Animal Crossing stories?
It's funny you should ask, actually. Made some good progress this week. Shop just got upgraded. Museum's currently under construction.
Good to hear.
Had a little bit of stress about selling my turnips, though. I didn't have a good price on my turnips until this morning, so just about broke even.
Who do you sell them to? Do you sell them to other human players online, or is it like a market in-game?
So there's a little travelling salesperson comes around and sells them to you every Sunday morning. You buy them at whatever price they have them at, and then during the week, the shop will have it at a random price each day, varying between, I don't know, like 50 and 400 or something. You buy it for like 100.
Through.
Oh yeah, it's a very, very deep network of turnip selling. Yeah.
Is everyone playing on the same game, or is it your own little game between your mates?
You have like everyone has their own island, and everyone will have like a different price. So if you wanted, you could go and message your mate and say, "What's the price of turnips on your island? Can I come and buy them?"
I love it. I'll have to get on
fancy it. Actually, I might. Can I get what devices can I get it on?
That's a nice. Do you work for Nintendo by any chance, there, Joe?
Yes, I do.
Are they sponsoring the podcast?
This sponsorship is sponsored by the I don't know, Chicken in FC from Zimbabwe.
But no, to answer your question, Joe, Nintendo Switch exclusive. I'd fully recommend.
Other game consoles are available though.
They are, but
went out obviously.
Yeah, I mean you wouldn't want to buy them, but they are.
No. Anything else, Rob? Anything beyond Animal Crossing, or has that been taking up pretty much all your time?
I mean, I do have a job, and I have been working.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Outside, it's not really very important. So yeah, mainly Animal Crossing, really.
Good. How many FIFA Ultimate Team packs did you open yesterday, just for the viewers?
I opened 24.
No,
I'd saved them up by doing SBCs and weekly rewards and whatnot, and I packed a grand total of 188 rated player and no team of the season. So all gone down the drain.
Then, mate.
Yeah, yes,
good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good. Worth your toil and hard work. Pleased to hear it. Hugh, anything interesting in your life?
I ran 5k. I did the Run for Heroes. Got nominated to do that. Not as fast as Ross Barkley, sadly.
Or Scott.
Yeah. They seem to do it a lot quicker than I did, but it was good fun for a good cause, obviously.
Did you see why Ross Barkley's was so low?
No.
Apparently, there's a setting in Strava that only record your moving time. So he just ran 5k in a series of sprints, and it just recorded.
Really?
His time. So he didn't actually run. Yeah.
Apparently, Harry Maguire was caught cheating.
Apparently his route wasn't 5k. He just did like 4k in about the same time.
Some other bloke did it and caught him out.
That makes my 27 minutes feel a lot better, to be honest.
I almost passed out doing mine, so maybe I should do a bit more running before the next time.
Well, considering we 3 of us have signed up for Tough Mudder at the end of the year, we probably should do a bit more training, I think.
Yeah, possibly, if it ever happened.
Well, that's true. I mean, it might not.
Good, man. Any more activities?
Nothing much really. There's not much you can do, to be honest, at this time.
Valid.
Pretty bleak outlook there, Hugh.
Aside from work and my uni revision, that's what's keeping me occupied pretty much for the past 2 weeks where we've been off air.
Off air.
Our life revolves around this podcast, you know.
It does, yeah. It does. It's eagerly anticipated.
I've got nothing else.
The only thing keeping you going.
Speaking of which, Joe, have you done any sort of baking or philosophical readings?
Yeah, I had a ratatouille yesterday. That was nice.
Nice, very nice. Yeah.
Reading this week. Finished Kafka. Oh, sorry, was that Hugh?
You watched the film, or you actually made
No,
it?
I made one.
Okay.
So that was nice. Carried on with the reading, finished Kafka. So I moved on to a couple of books this week. I'm doing. I thought I'd have a bit of a regression session. I've been cracking through the old JK. Reading a bit of the old Beadle the Bard. Never read that when I was a kid. So I thought now's the time. But I'm also reading Anthony Beevor's Berlin, Battle of Berlin, and a little bit of Adam Kay's This Is Going to Hurt. So I'm staying busy with the reading. Other than that, wash the car, wash the Alpha.
Nice.
Just in case at any point it ends up back on the road. I've a horrible feeling that when the day comes, lockdown ends, I'm going to try and start it, and it's going to fail to start again.
I suspect the battery might be in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, or the wheels falling off or something. So.
Do you not take it out for a spin every now and then to just keep it ticking over?
Well, normally, Hugh, yes, but I'd be arrested.
He wants to be able to get home though, Hugh.
You can go to the shops or something.
Yeah, but I'm not randomly going to the shops here. Like, I'm not pointlessly going to Tesco's. I'm being responsible man.
Yeah.
Doing a bit of that. I've been playing a bit of the old Football Man.
Football Man.
2030 now.
2030.
What were you 2 weeks ago?
I'm currently 7th in the Premier League. Got a good little side to pull together. The only real player in my team is. I've got anyone that's still real.
Anyone who's still real.
You transcended the real
Well,
world.
I did have Tom Davis, but I sold him because he was underperforming. I replaced him with a fella from Chile called Alexis Lima. I've got Joel Asoro, who, if any of you have watched Sunderland Till I Die, will realise is a lot better on Football Manager than he is in real life.
I couldn't tell you, mate, to be honest.
Other than that, so I've been doing a bit of that. Other than that, it's been yeah.
Pretty quiet couple of weeks then, mate.
I don't think everything else I've done. Better move house, obviously.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, a man who's enthusiastic about the big move.
Yeah. So I just sort of taking over, keeping busy with work. And
Taking over. I think that describes most of us really plodding on.
Oh, about to buy Snooker 2019 on PC. Give you a game, Anton.
Yeah, I'm going to buy that with you, mate, I think. I wonder if you can select Peter Ebdon and spend 4 days playing a match.
Do you play as players?
Yeah,
can you choose to be a certain player?
I believe you can set up your own, but there's nothing more amusing than watching the Sheriff of Pottingham versus Peter Ebdon. That's pretty much.
Who's the Sheriff of Pottingham?
It's Anthony McGill, isn't it?
No, Anthony McGill has no name. I don't think he has a nickname.
He's nameless.
I think it's Anthony Hamilton.
Anthony Hamilton.
Anthony McGill's just like, it's just like, here's Anthony McGill.
Yeah. He looks quite shifty, Anthony McGill. Like he's just sort of walked into the arena and doesn't really know how he's ended up there.
Do you ever see that interview? Do you ever see that guy who, that cleaner who went for the interview at the BBC and he took a wrong turn and he ended up being interviewed about like Apple? And he was like, yes, I think it's going to be a big year. Worst bit is he didn't even get the job as a cleaner after all that.
Well, on BBC News, or was this Sporting?
Yeah. No, it was BBC News. He ended up getting interviewed on BBC News about, I think it was like something to do with Apple. I think it was to do with sales of the iPhone or something. And you can see there's this great little thing where he suddenly realises he's on BBC News and he goes like, oh my god. Give that a watch after. I'll link it into the onto the page. That's me. What about you, Mr. A? What have you been up to?
Yeah, same old, mate. Really, plodding is probably the word. Woodwork wise, I thought I'd keep you all updated. I think I mentioned to you the other day, Joe, I've been trying to fit a little attachment to the bird table I've made to stop the squirrels coming up it. Machine guns, turrets, barbed wire. Yeah, a lot of barbed wire. But it's not been successful.
Just buy a fox. Job done.
But oh god, I was going to make a joke about animal markets, but I think I won't.
I'll make that later on.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, other than that, mate, I don't want to cover Pokemon again in too much detail because we speak about that at quite some length last week. But unfortunately, so I ordered because I finished Pokemon Sun, obviously, between the last podcast and now. I'd already started it. I was about halfway through the last time we did the podcast.
You need to get out more, mate.
Yeah, if only. So I ordered Pokemon Alpha Sapphire off eBay.
Is that a new one?
So it's not a new one, but I played Sapphire and Ruby and all that lot when I was a kid, and it's one that came out about 5 years ago. It was like a rerun. So I bought it off eBay. It didn't work, so I've had to send it back.
It's like a cricket, but it's like a cricket ball I once bought for 99p off eBay. Never arrived.
That is a
was it a used cricket ball? Was it one that nicely shined on one side?
No, it was supposed to be. It was formerly of the Australian cricket team, so it was pretty heavily sanded on one side and then not on the other.
Oh dear. Well, that's a shame. Yeah. Other than that, yeah, I've been doing quite a lot of gardening, tree surgery.
Oh yeah.
Chopping down some branches. Yeah, my dad's got a chainsaw.
Actually?
Surprise. Yeah.
That doesn't
Did you get it from the Middle Isle of Lidl?
No, that's where the satellite dish came from. For the German TV channels. No, bit of chainsawing, chopping down some overhanging branches. Other than that, yeah, just plodding along, enjoying the home time to an extent, going a bit mad, but keeping it together, so to speak.
Excellent.
Good. Well, I think that concludes that. I'm quite excited to hear what your section's got in store for us, Joe. So we'll kick off with that after the break.
The prologue. For those of you who are fans of Up Pompeii. I'm going to be talking through some of the more amusing names from the worlds of football. I'm going to start off with a couple of top fives. Just go for them. Obviously, jump in whenever you feel like, lads, if you've got any crackers that love it. So, talk for some sort of quite orderly, amusing names. So, I'm going to start off with a couple of classics. Number 5, Angel Rangel. Not only a marvellous name, but also in the top 2 or 3 players that I've ever seen play.
Just because he's
now
at
QPR, and all I can say is he's one of the greatest players possibly to ever play the game. Loves the club. What a guy. Number 4, I went for Mark the Man. Something that Hugh actually wrote in my
Mark the Man. It's just ridiculous.
And then we come on to number 3. So I went for Pierre Van Hooijdonk. For those of you who are fans of Ultimate Soccer Manager 98, which I know certainly I am, there was a weird glitch where the commentator would sometimes scream out Van Hooijdonk out of nowhere. So I enjoyed that. Then coming on to fans of Hull City, I've gone for Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink.
That's
a man who very possibly was a member of the aristocracy. Not entirely sure on that, but I assume it was something like that.
Speculation, but possible.
And number 1, I just thought I'd go for a classic, really, which was Papa Bouba Diop.
Yeah, you can't get past it. You can't get past it.
There's nothing specifically amusing about it. It just flows so nicely. And he was actually quite a good player. I think he played with Bolton and Portsmouth and a few others. And wonderful, wonderful player. A couple of players that honourable mentions. Obviously, George Best. I've always quite like that. Just sort of summed him up very nicely. And Ricky Van Wolfswinkel.
Van Wolfswinkel, I like that. Yeah.
So a couple of those. So obviously, any other suggestions?
I was just thinking along those lines. Van Ginkel, I quite liked.
Oh, Van Ginkel. It is mostly Dutch players, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Whereas, so this section was the Dutch section. We'll then move on to some of the other sections of this list. Do have other parts. I mean, silly sponsorships. You want to go to America, really, don't you?
Oh yeah.
But anyhow, I'll move on to section 2, which is some of the more, I wouldn't say offensive, but maybe a bit more risque names on the list. So number 1, Chelsea once had a player in their youth academy called Naughty Naughty.
Shut up!
It's true.
That cannot be true.
They were spelt differently though, weren't they?
Yeah, Naughty. So it was Norti, Norty. So naughty. There was also once a player who played up front for Hanover 96 and the Republic of Congo called Christ Bongo.
What is going on?
You see, these sound like Football Manager regen names.
They do.
Yeah, they really do. They sound like the people from your 2030
One of the best moments I ever had was when I had a striker who was actually quite cool called Elton John on Football Manager.
Come off it. Oh my god.
So then moved on to a more recent player, I believe is currently the goalkeeper for Independiente, Fabian Assmann, which I quite like. We've then got a goalkeeper I found who played for the Australian national team. I think it was in the 30s, called Norman Conquest.
No, that cannot be true.
Coincidentally, is also what I wrote my EPQ on.
What, the man or the event?
And then finally, Newcastle United once signed. I think it was Dutch. He never actually played in the end because apparently he got a lot of stick for the play. They once signed a man called.
You can't even say it.
It's like the Bradley Walsh episode from The Chase.
Yeah,
Brian-
it really is.
Called Brian Penis.
Stop. That cannot be true. Who did he play for? Newcastle. I was going to ask you how to spell it, but I'm not gonna, just for fear that you might have cardiac arrest.
When did he play?
I think it was the mid 2000s. All I know is the papers laid into him for having a name that sounded a bit like penis.
So we're on the 3rd episode and we're already laughing at a bloke whose name sounds like penis.
Oh, this was an intellectual podcast. A couple of sort of honourable mentions. If many of you watched the music video for Skinner and Badil, It's Coming Home '98, you'll notice that the German fans have number 11 Kuntz on the back. That's obviously Stefan Kuntz, spelt in a certain way. And current Marseille player Rod Fanny.
Yeah, I like.
Good. So that's that section.
That was amusing.
We then got funny sponsorships. Obviously, a few obvious ones. Sports Direct Arena.
Yeah, it's not a good name, is it? That really,
or as it was briefly called, the Sports Direct at St James's Park Arena.
Christ.
I've then gone on to York City, who briefly, after they were sponsored by Nestle, changed their stadium to the Kit Kat Crescent in 2005.
No.
That flows quite nicely, to be fair.
Kit Kat Crescent.
We then had Colorado Rapids. So I've tried to stick away from America too, because some of them are just ridiculous, the guaranteed rate stadium and so on. But we've got Colorado Rapids play at Dick's Sporting Goods Arena. We've then got Livingston. I was thinking about your mate Neil, actually, Anton, who obviously was a fan of the Well. I was thinking there must be some good ones in Scotland, and they didn't disappoint. Livingston, 2015, changed their name to the Tony Macaroni Arena.
Is he a person? Is he some sort of?
I think it's a brand of like takeaway Italian food, American Italian food. I think.
I'll fact check that for you.
And then Northwich, Victoria, number 1. They changed their name to the Bargain Boo Stadium.
Sorry, Joe. Just to go back to Livingston, their arena was also commonly known as the Spaghetti Had.
That is quality.
That's excellent.
So moving on to the final section before I run over time and before I possibly have a cardiac. Football team names. So I'll start. Personally, some of my UK favourite names, obviously the Met Police, Vauxhall Motors, Airbus UK. And I like those kind of like almost quite like realistic, so real job type teams that end up putting out a football side. So across the world, there've been a couple of good ones. So the Botswana Meat Commission, very strong team in Botswana, have a 22,000 capacity stadium.
No.
The Meat Commission have got a 22,000.
The Botswana Meat Commission, they play in the top division of Botswana football. I also quite liked the Strongest from Bolivia. Actually, quite a good side. The problem is if you're called the Strongest and you get pumped 4-0, bit of a question.
The Strongest what?
They're just called the Strongest.
Open to interpretation, inevitably.
They're quite good actually as well.
Is that a translation, or are they actually called the Strongest?
Oh, that's a good question, Hugh.
I'll try and fact check for you.
Fact check that one. So then we come on to the top 3, and it does sort of go into a league of its own when it comes to this section. So we've got Zimbabwe. I mentioned them actually in the intro. one of the teams in Zimbabwe was bought out by a popular franchise chicken outlet called Chicken Inn. So they became Chicken Inn FC. And they actually won the Zimbabwean League in 2015.
Imagine if we had like Chicken Cottage FC playing in the Premier League.
I played for them.
I know you would.
So then we're into the top two, and number 2, I believe, is a team from Argentina, which is called Deportivo Moron.
No.
Which I quite like. And finally, my all-time favourite. It's not hugely offensive, but it's just FL Fart from Norway.
Oh, God.
Men's team playing the 4th tier.
Do they?
The women's side actually playing the top Siren, which is the Norwegian top division, which I suppose dispels the age-old myth that men's farts are stronger than women's farts.
How long have you been cooking up that line?
Oh, I'd say 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Since we started.
I enjoy it. It delivered nicely.
Couple of other amusing ones. Triangle United from Zimbabwe. Obviously Airbus UK Broughton from Wales. So I did go around the world somewhat and find obviously RB Leipzig, which actually their name doesn't really make a huge amount of sense because they're not allowed to be called Red Bull Leipzig, so they're actually called Rasball and Sport and Leipzig, which actually translates as Lawn Ball Sports Leipzig. Yes, that's
excellent, mate. Well, on the couple of fact checks, Club the Strongest is their official name. Apparently, it's not a translation. It's called Club the Strongest.
They're also over 100 years old.
Yeah, very good side actually. They're one of the strongest teams in Bolivia, I think.
Are they?
Yeah, genuinely.
Yeah. Well, apparently, originally known as the Strong Football Club, but they've clearly upgraded themselves since then. And then Tony Macaroni, it turns out, is actually a chain of restaurants in Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Are they?
Yeah. Company slogan is Vive per mangiare, which means live to eat.
Very good. That's another sort of funny name from Scottish football to with food. I did once know that the Hamilton academical chairman was called Ronald McDonald, and I always found that quite amusing.
Honestly, some of these have been so ridiculous they genuinely could be made up. Oh dear, well, that was hugely enjoyable. To be honest, my favourite one, for all the crudeness, Norman Conquest is an unbelievable name.
Apparently he's most famous for once shipping 17 goals in one game. The goalkeeper.
Oh my word!
I tried to, yeah.
Well, that was remarkable. Thank you for that, Joe. Well, that was sliders. I was going to say seamlessly, but not really, given we're all kind of panting and sweating at the humour. But seamlessly into our next section. Okay, so now we're on to the main event. Congratulations for those of you who have made it this far. Haven't nodded off or closed down the window or whatever. So actually, as Hugh suggested the other week, if you have made it this far, drop us a comment in the comment section. Nothing rude. Just a hello would suffice.
Yeah,
but
nice.
Yeah, congratulations for making it this far. We're going to discuss, as I said in the intro, we're going to discuss an underrated 11 of the Premier League era, as decided by an elected panel of experts, i.e. us four, the other night. Took us a good hour and a half to get this side down on paper. So again, any complaints, ajsnookerhotmail.com. But without further ado,
Freddie ado.
You were going to
say that, and we can't say ado or indeed because Wilfred Indeedy always comes up, and he probably will come up while we're talking about this. But right, so to start with, I'm going to list the keeper that we've come up with and the defence. So for goalkeeper, Tim Krul, and then the back four from left back through to right back, Mikel Sylvestre, Steve Bruce, Daniel Agger, and Laurent. So, well, it's an interesting back four and keeper. Any thoughts to kick us off?
Yes. So, Tim Krul, just a fantastic keeper, really, and hugely undervalued in some respects. So, if you remember back to, when it was he first made his debut, I think I seem to remember his big breakthrough moment came in a game between Newcastle and West Brom in this championship. I think it was back in about 2010, and he was unbelievable. Some of the stops he made were fantastic, and he progressed very nicely, didn't he? He went through to the Newcastle first team. I felt very sorry for Steve Harper, who spent like 15 years behind Shea Gibbon, one season as number one keeper, then replaced by Tim Krul. But anyhow, he was a really, really good keeper. I think he unfortunately suffered quite a severe injury. Where was he at the time? I can't remember who was favourite. He suffered quite a severe injury. He sort of disappeared, only to then obviously re-emerge this year at Norwich. And actually, I think he's been one of the best keepers this season in the Prem. Which, to be fair, given Norwich, he's getting probably quite a lot of action. Which,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Joking aside, it does. As a keeper, you sometimes can flatter the statistics.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think he's such a solid keeper.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's a man for the big occasion. I mean, the story that we all kind of brought up was when I think it was the 2014 World Cup, maybe, when Van Gaal pulled Cillessen off and brought Krul on specifically for penalties, just because he is an intimidating goalkeeper. For some reason, he just is unbelievably good at saving penalties, and he's just a good shot stopper in open play as well. I just think he's a really good keeper.
Yeah, well, he did the same thing against Spurs,
I think
in that penalty shootout. He won it for them again. He had it all written on the water bottle, all of the little.
Why don't keepers always do that? Because even if you've got nothing written on there, even if it's just nonsense, if I'm a player stepping up to take a penalty and I've got a keeper looking at some notes on me, surely that gets inside your head. Yeah, I'd think, crikey, he knows. I might have to put. I normally hit mine to the bottom left. I might have to hit it to the bottom right this time because if he knows I'm going there. I don't know why more keepers don't do it. I just think it's a great little trick of the mind.
I agree. I think we were relatively unanimous. It's one of the positions we did definitely largely agree on. Ben Foster was chucked in there. Cudicini was chucked in there as well.
Yeah, I think Cudicini was definitely one that we considered as being a potential option. I think that if it hadn't been for Petr Cech coming in 2004, arguably we could be considering him as one of the best goalkeepers to have played in the Premier League. Might be a bit controversial, but personally, I thought he was
I don't think it's that controversial. I think he was good. I think that's just unfortunate for him. Like you say, Cech was just better.
I think he was truly one of the unluckiest keepers of all time because I thought he was really, really good. And then obviously Cech came in, and when Cech came in, particularly before his injury with Mr. Hunt. When he hurt his head.
Jeremy Hunt.
Stephen Hunt, I think it was. Obviously, Cech came in, was probably the best goalkeeper in the world at the time. And he'd end up, obviously, as reserve keeper. Then he ended up at reserve keeper at Spurs. I just think, very unlucky keeper. I thought he was, and once again, unlucky to miss out on this list.
Yeah, and he was also unlucky internationally because obviously he had Buffon ahead of him for so long.
And Toldo as well in the early 2000s.
And Toldo,
I think he'll be annoyed not to be on this list. I think he'll be a bit annoyed.
If ever he thought his career was a waste, he'll look at this and think, "Oh, it was."
Yeah, he can be on the bench. It's fine.
He should feel a bit aggrieved.
We thought we could put him where he's most comfortable. We put him on.
Well, when he listens to this, he can write the complaint.
AJSnooks@hotmail.com.
Yes, just to clarify. Yeah.
He also likes receiving hate mail to his family address, but we won't put that in there at the moment.
No, that should remain anonymous.
Well,
for a while. Right. Fullbacks then, chaps. Sylvestre and Laurent.
I think Laurent is the unsung hero of the Invincibles. I know Joe is a huge fan, so I don't want to steal his thunder. But
Joe has plenty to say on Laurent.
I think when we talk about the best 11 of the Premier League era, everyone seems to sort of plump for Gary Neville immediately, and you never really give Laurent a second thought, which is why we sort of considered him to be underrated. He was just a solid player. He played for Arsenal for how many seasons? 6, something like that.
Five or so. He 242 appearances he made for Arsenal.
How many?
242 in all competitions. 159 Premier League appearances. And Arsene Wenger frequently described well, I think one described him as the best signing he ever made at Arsenal.
He also scored one of the best own goals I've ever seen against Man City, where he dribbled it round his own player. And
Oh, yeah.
finished it bottom left-hand corner. Amazing goal.
And people also
I've
forget
never
about
made
his.
you watch.
I've forgotten about that. People also forget about his second life at Portsmouth. I mean, admittedly, he was aging and he wasn't quite a player he had been, but he was also part of that Portsmouth team that won the FA Cup. And that back line of people like him and Nimroy Primus and so on, very experienced back line. So, yeah, for me, top lad.
Get him in there. Get him in there. Mikel Silvestre, I suppose, another, well, predominantly United, but also Arsenal player. Any thoughts on him? I mean, I certainly think he's a good player. I think he was probably, again, one that we agreed fairly swiftly on. We've got some other names in the bank that we'll chuck in there. But...
We struggled originally to think of a left back because of all the good ones, we thought they were quite high rated anyway. You think of Leighton Baines, that sort of genre. You think, well, they're not underrated because people respect their quality. But Silvestre played for so long in the Premier League and was a dependable, solid replacement whenever he came in. I think that's why we considered him to be particularly underrated.
The other player I thought was, you think of as well, people like John O'Shea at the same time, similar kind of role at United. I think O'Shea could play across the back four in a similar way to what Silvestre could, but I get the impression that John O'Shea is actually now quite rated. People admit that he was a perfect squad player. Silvestre doesn't seem to get that mention, and I wonder if maybe it's because John O'Shea stayed slightly longer, maybe, or whatever. But yeah, Silvestre was
I think you're right.
Rock solid player.
John O'Shea nutmegged Luis Figo, didn't he? And Silvestre didn't. So maybe.
So that's the mark of a good player. I mean, to be fair, if you're nutmegging Luis Figo, you're either very good or you've got massive testicles, or both.
It was the 17th anniversary of it yesterday. So
it was, yeah.
Stop.
It was actually. I saw that.
Right, so Hugh, you said you've been doing nothing in the last couple of weeks.
You know what you've been doing.
I've been watching John O'Shea compilation videos. Because why not?
Oh dear. Right. I mean, I think the other names we chucked in, Kolarov maybe, again a bit of an understudy to Clichy for a while at City, but certainly really good player, and now again at Roma.
Banging free kicks as well.
Yeah,
brilliant.
I used to think he was better than Clichy.
Yeah, I did.
In pretty much every asset aside from maybe one-on-one defending. I never understood why. Did he play under Guardiola or maybe Pellegrini or one of those? Mancini.
Pellegrini,
yeah.
Never understood why he played second fiddle for so long. But
I agree with you actually.
And he's flourished at Roma, isn't he?
What's more of a shock is why Sven-Göran Eriksson and Mark Hughes' original Manchester City left back Wayne Bridge. Why he didn't make the cut. Because he struck me very much a Pep Guardiola player.
Cynicism is actually I was going to say it doesn't come across well, but you're starting to make it come across quite well. Oh dear, such a cynical man.
I know.
Well, right. So Krul, Laurent, Silvestre. So centre backs, Steve Bruce, Hugh. That was probably your shout, I think, and we kind of took it and agreed with you, really.
Yeah, I think he's now. Well, people know him now as like the sort of the Newcastle manager.
Loves a kebab.
Who played quite dire football, if we're being honest. But back in the day, he was pretty solid centre back, and I think people consider him now to be the best English player to have never been capped. Certainly of the 80s and 90s.
It's not Charlie Austin.
I think most people would disagree with that assumption, but yeah, he was a really solid player. I think in one season he got 13 goals as well. So he was a captain.
Yeah.
Really?
Didn't he score the goal in, was it 95?
The one that,
this is not my
one in the league.
These chaps, I'm afraid.
Yeah, he scored against Sheffield Wednesday. I think it was 93. He won Ferguson's first Premier League title. It's where he jumps on the pitch and celebrates.
Yes, and it's a header. Yeah, that's the one. But I think is he harmed? Do you think by the fact that you look at him now? I suppose Sam Allardyce another one. You look at him now, you think he was never a footballer. I don't know, because you look at him, and with all due respect, he doesn't look like a footballer. You look at someone, I don't know, maybe like they're Nigel Pearson or someone like that. You look at it and think, I could imagine him, as a ball-winning midfielder. It's hard to imagine Brucey because he's got quite he's quite a nice, nice chap, and
he doesn't look like a bruiser, does he? And he's put on a few pounds, and he's just kind of he's been doing the rounds for some time in management circles.
Yeah.
A really good player. And I think you're right. He probably is.
He was just a solid defender.
Yeah, and obviously he made up that first Ferguson backline alongside Gary Pallister, which is actually again another combination that's forgotten about in the annals of history, I suppose. But
the Ferdinand and Vidic of their time, one would
they
say.
were the Ronnie Johnson and Jaap Stam of the early 90s.
I think for all those who were still listening, half of them have just disappeared.
Do we want to move on to Daniel Agger then, maybe?
Yeah, we'll crash through Daniel Agger. I'll let Rob start on him as the Liverpool fan, but again, we all as soon as you mentioned him, we were all like, yeah, he's a shoo-in.
Yeah, again, we kind of had a few names that we thought about, and then we weren't really convinced by any of them. A couple more recently, like Conor Cody and Johnny Evans, who've come good now in the Premier League. But Daniel Agger, I just love him as a player. I thought he was a really good defender. He just had so many injuries. He could never stay in that team for too long.
He was brittle, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was. He was brittle, but also a bit of a bruiser.
Yeah.
The combination of the two, I think, actually caught up with him.
It wrecked him. Yeah.
But he just loved Liverpool as well, which is why I love him even more.
Hasn't he got "You Never Walk Alone" tattooed on his knuckles or something?
Yeah. He's a tattoo artist. He's a tattoo artist as well.
Well, like.
Oh, I see. I was going to say, like, how many knuckles has he got?
Yeah, no, I just love it. He obviously had a decent left peg on him as well.
Yeah.
But defensively, he was still good as well.
And a decent noggin.
I'll tell you, on Football Manager 08, he was a great signing. Doesn't matter who you were, Barcelona, whoever you wanted to be, get him in there. Do a job for a good 10 year.
Yeah, well, he was linked to Barcelona, ironically.
Was he?
Yeah, in his later years, but didn't want to go. I think it was because he was aging, and then he went back to Bromby. Yeah, he was linked with Barcelona, and then went, actually, I fancy going back home and playing for Bromby.
I read an interview with him about him with him not so long ago, actually, where he was talking about when he went back to Bromby, and he was saying that for him, he was looking at it honestly and said that he couldn't keep up with the pace of the league anymore, even though he actually, I think quality-wise and technique-wise and that sort of stuff, he was there because his body just could not cope with that top tier of European football anymore, which is why he went back to Bromby. And even that, I think, in the end proved too much for him, and unfortunately he had to retire quite early. But yeah, what a player! What he was a fantastic player.
Yeah,
I like Daniel Agger. Right, midfield then. So that's the back four and keeper. Midfield, we're playing some sort of 4-2-3-1 formation. So we'll go the two kind of more holding midfielders first. We've gone for Ray Parlour and Georginio Wijnaldum, which is quite a nice kind of split of eras. To show that we have done some proper thinking behind this. Do you two gents want to cover Ray Parlour?
You mean the Romford Pele?
The Romford Pele.
I mean that is his nickname.
He is, yeah, the Romford Pele. Fantastic player.
Yeah.
Do you look anything like Pele, do we think, or?
Well, the only difference is that Pele wasn't quite as good.
Yeah.
Take that apart from, they were pretty similar players. Yeah.
Similar.
Both have won 3 World Cups. Both played for Santos. But no, speaking of World Cup, I've got a good story on Ray Parlour. And this sort of thing possibly is why he's underrated. So he never really fulfilled his international potential. Even though I think in the 1997, I think he won Arsenal's Player of the Year. And or maybe 97, 98, he won Arsenal's Player of the Year. Fantastic player. But he didn't make the 98 Football World Cup. And the reason he didn't, I believe the reason he didn't make the 98 World Cup, according to him, is he had a falling out with Glenn Hoddle. I can't imagine anyone falling out with Glenn Hoddle, but he did. And apparently the reason he fell out with Glenn Hoddle is because he insulted Glenn Hoddle's spiritual healer, which apparently was due to the fact that he'd suffered an injury. I think it was an upper body injury or something like that. And Glenn said, before you go and see the physio, I want you to go and see the spiritual healer. So he went to spiritual healer, went to see him. And apparently he was sat on the chair and he went to I'll have a short back and sides, please. And apparently that was insulting to the spiritual healer and he missed out on the World Cup.
You are joking. I'd forgotten that Glenn Hoddle was kind of what's the word? Kind of into that kind of spiritual sort of
evil in a previous life, which is obviously what cost him his job.
Sort of homeopathic remedies and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think Parlour was sort of the Darren Fletcher type of his day. He'd run all day, he'd work, go box to box. And he did the underappreciated work that flashy Arsenal players in the sort of late 90s when they got Dennis Bergkamp, that sort of player, Robert Pires.
Christopher Ray.
they took the limelight, and Parlour was there, sort of making everything tick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Darren Fletcher. He was one that we almost had, and in fact, I'd probably suggest that he was probably the one we would have picked had we not picked Ray Parlour. But
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, both good players. Rob Wijnaldum, he's kind of your baby, isn't he? But we all agreed on him as well.
Yeah, another one of just my favourite players at the moment. I think his sort of ball retention is kind of up there with any player playing currently. If you watch him, he's so hard to dispossess, and he's one of those players in that Liverpool midfield that's almost always in there, like just first name on the sheet. And obviously, like when he came on against Barcelona in the 4-0 win, he grabbed 2 of the goals.
Grabbed 2, yeah.
He's bizarrely good in the air.
Yeah, he is. He's only like 5'9", isn't he?
Yeah. He's got a massive lead.
But I think it's worth noting also that, I mean, people might think, oh, actually, Wijnaldum is starting to become rated. I'd probably agree to an extent, but we've stuck him in just because I think we all think he could be rated even more highly.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, I think we discussed this the other night, was that he was very well rated, and rightfully so, at Newcastle. When he had that season or two there, he was very well rated there. I think that's because he stood out in what was quite a poor side. And then when he went to Liverpool, the sort of expectation evaporated, and I don't know. I certainly didn't think that he was. People didn't think that he would be one of the standout players in that side. And actually, as it's transpired, particularly in the last 18 months or so, he's become, I think, as Rob says, the real key cog in that midfield.
Yeah. He seems to be the one that isn't rotated as often. Obviously, Henderson seems to only play the league, and he gets rotated out, and Oxlade-Chamberlain and Fabinho all get taken apart and put back together again.
Cater.
But he's the one that always seems to be there, no matter if it's in the cup or the league, and he just does a solid job, doesn't he?
Agreed.
I think it's partly where from Newcastle he was playing as like a flying right winger, and then he came to Liverpool and they were trying to find what position they wanted him to play at, and he's now sort of playing this box-to-box midfield, played centre half for a game.
But they did that with Oxlade-Chamberlain as well, didn't they? They seem to have and Milner, if you want to go.
The only thing I'd say with Oxlade-Chamberlain is I'm still not 100% convinced anyone has found his best position, because he looks brilliant at times, but I don't know. I'm still not 100% convinced.
I think it is somewhere in the centre of midfield, but it just seems to be only certain games. He likes kind of broken play and being able to drive and take long shots, which is where he's at his best. I don't think he's at his best when he has to be really disciplined. And
that's the thing, and that's why I think he'll always struggle for England, particularly because I think a lot of time players, when we're playing, we're playing for England, I think particularly in those sort of, my playing a team like Sweden, for example, in the World Cup. England have obviously a big reputation. Those sort of teams put men behind the ball, and I can't see someone like Oxlade-Chamberlain being able to break down a side like that. Where he possibly is slightly better, as he says, in those broken play, balls bobbling around, it's a bit scruffy, and he grab the game by the scruff of the neck.
I agree. I think he's a decent player, but anyway, he's not in this 11. Wijnaldum is. Wijnaldum is in there. Cam.
Well, before we move on.
Oh no! I thought I'd managed to move on without you mentioning the dreaded, but go on.
There was one key omission here that I've and that is, of course, Two-Guy. Now, Two-Guy, in my opinion, was one of the most underrated players ever playing the Premier League. 94 caps for Turkey. Now, this is a period when Turkey were a very strong side.
One of the international powerhouses.
He got to semi-finals of the World Cup in 2002 when he was in the side. I believe they got
Greece won the Euros in 2004.
They were a powerhouse. They beat France, who I had in the bloody Year 3 sweepstake, which I still remember. I'm still not bitter about. And it's wonderful, wonderful passing ability. There's some great compilations of him on YouTube, banging in goals for Blackburn. Sir Alex Ferguson said that if he was 10 years younger, he would have been signed for United. And Mark Hughes said if he was 10 years younger, he should have played for Barcelona. Peace out. I just think,
peace out. What a player.
Fantastic footballer.
I mean, he only scored 11 goals for Blackburn, so his goal compilations can't be that long.
They're all bangers.
Moving Ruben Neves of his day.
To be fair, I do like Ruben Neves. Anyway, we digress. Moving swiftly on. So we've got 2 centre mids. We're looking at sort of an attacking midfielder now. This is a player after your heart, Hugh, I think. Tim Cahill.
Yes, I love Tim Cahill. Not just because he's from Australia and they've hardly ever produced any good footballers, so it's nice to.
Ooh, that's a bit of a slap. What about normal Conquest?
Aside from Norman's Conquest, and obviously Mark Viduka,
Harry Kewell.
Harry Kewell, Mark
and Harry
Brashear,
Kewell.
You get
Okay,
your
there's quite a few.
Lucas Neal.
Okay.
Mark
Right.
Forster.
Well,
I
don't worry. Most of those
renege
weren't
on my comment. But yeah, he was. I seem to remember he was signed on the cheap from Millwall back in early 2000s for Everton, and ended up scoring over 50 Premier League goals, mostly with his head, which is why I like him, because as a small guy, he always seemed to be in the box. I think he has like the third most headed goals in the Premier League or something ridiculous after Crouch and probably Alan Shearer. He was just another guy who worked his socks off and seemed to get the most out of his ability, but because he played for a side who weren't in the top four, I don't think people quite give him the credit that he deserves.
That's kind of symbolic of that Everton team. You know, they were always solid, particularly under David Moyes. They were always solid, and they did decently. But yeah, Cahill. I mean, I was looking up Cahill before we came on, and that I was watching that goal that he scored in the 2014 World Cup. Like, I think it was left foot volley over his shoulders. Like, he scored some ridiculous goals. He was seriously good, and I think you're right, underrated largely because he played for a team that they didn't quite kick on and deliver, but he was seriously good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Other than, I mean, the other name mentioned there is one that's potentially a little bit of a wild card, but we all kind of seriously thought about him. Was Fellaini.
A figure of ridicule at United. But that's because they tried to take what was effectively a second striker, big man in the air, trying to play him in the Pirlo role. And with all due respect to Fellaini, his strengths were in the air, hold up play, flick-ons, finishing.
Which he was very good at.
Very good and very, very effective. But his strengths were not dictating the play, passing, but first touch, tackling. This is a man whose the strongest part of his body was possibly his elbow. But that was a key role, and that's why he was so good. He scored a lot of very important goals. And actually, I think as Hugh pointed out when we were having this discussion, particularly I think it was in the Van Gaal years, when United got stuck, which was often sort of 0-0, 1-0 late on in the game, what did they do? Well, they brought on Fellaini rather than play him in the holding midfield role. They actually stuck him
up top.
Yeah, exactly, just in behind the striker. So.
Did score a few quite important goals doing that, or at least assisted.
He did. He bailed you out a lot in that really kind of doldrums period of kind of Van Gaal and
Moise.
Yeah.
I just think I'm not saying he was a wonderful, wonderful player, but he received far too much stick, and he wasn't the right player for United. I'd go so far to say that, but. Yeah, he was a good footballer.
I think underrated probably not underrated in his actual ability, but his impact on the team.
Yeah, and I thought he was quite good for Belgium in the World Cup. He looked quite strong. I thought in the World Cup just gone, I thought he was quite good for Belgium as well. So he is a good player, and the fact that both obviously Roberto Martinez and Mark Wilmots before him both rated him enough to play him in that Belgium side.
Yeah. And now Sean Maloney on the coaching staff.
Well, he's a Sean Maloney type player. So
you like Sean Maloney, Hugh, don't you?
I love Sean Maloney. He was he was the Scottish Messi, I believe they called him when he played for Wigan.
I thought that was Ryan Gould.
Oh, maybe. I don't know, but he was a key part of that Wigan side with Callum McManaman and John Bosishaw. So
don't forget Roger Espinoza.
True.
Gary Caldwell.
I mean, I do think Sean Maloney was underrated, but maybe not enough for this team. But certainly up there.
I don't think he was going to get in there past Tim Cahill and potentially these other more attacking wide men we're about to mention. But a midfield three and some description of Ray Parlour, Wijnaldum and Cahill just behind the front three, I think is quite decent and certainly underrated.
Yeah.
And then in terms of a front three, this is very much two wide men and a striker. We've got Florent Malouda, Mark Albrighton, and Edin Dzeko. Again, I mean, any burning thoughts on these? Or maybe start with Albrighton, because he's one that I think probably all had down early on and didn't take too much debating.
Yeah, I just think this is possibly a man who's... how on earth he's never had one England cap, I just find perplexing. And that season at Leicester, he was so good. And okay, yeah, they haven't quite the heights since then, but he's still in that Leicester side. You know, Rodgers rates him, Puel rated him, Ranieri obviously rated him, and okay, he's not a very complex player. You know, he's a kind of guy that get to your byline, he'll whip it across. His crossing's pretty good, and he got someone like Jamie Vardy in the middle. You know, a real poacher, a real finisher. He's a perfect kind of player. I actually remember I actually went to see him very early on in his career. I saw him play at the Western Homes.
Well, he went to his house.
Community Stadium. I mean, and then play a bit of FIFA, job done. No, we went to see him play for England under 21s actually against Lithuania under 21s, which was a wonderful game. And I remember him being surrounded by 3 Lithuanian under 21s players. Obviously, were all world class and all have gone on to big things. And he just wriggled his way out of all 3 of them. I always just thought this player's he's going to be quite something. And when he first came through at Aston Villa, he looked like he was going to be massive. And unfortunately, he didn't quite kick on. But he found his place in that Leicester side, and it was perfect for him. And I just think that he was really a key cog in that side. And I just feel very sorry for him that he's never ever been given a chance for England, because I think he deserved it.
Well, in that season, he actually played every single Premier League game.
Did he?
Which I think Wes Morgan was the only other outfield player to do that.
And also, he played most of it on the left as a right-footed player, which is pretty impressive.
And he doesn't seem to get the same. Yeah, he doesn't seem to get the same credit for that season as your Wes Morgans and your Mahrez and your Vardys, but he was quite a key part
I would
of the
argue
team.
he probably wasn't as good as Mahrez or Kante.
No,
but he is a little bit forgotten about.
But the whole point of that Leicester side was that they were a team, really, and that they all
exactly that, and the same reason that I mentioned, and I got laughed at town for saying Danny Simpson, because another player who in that team, laugh all you want, but he's not a great individual footballer, but in that team, he played a really key role. Yes, okay, he couldn't go to the after party because of his tag, but he was a key member of that side. And moving on.
I agree.
No, you kind of touched on it with Albrighton. He's not going to score you those goals, which is probably why he didn't get all the credit. He supplies the goals, and he's only 30. He seems like he's been around for ages. I thought he was like mid-30s, but he seems like he's been around.
He reminds me a bit of James Milner in the way that he goes about his work, gets the byline, works hard. He's just he's a terrific player, and I mean obviously in that one season he was really good for them. But he's as Joe said, he came through Aston Villa. He was before that, and he's still playing for Leicester now. He's a good little player and very much underappreciated.
And no one's ever paid money for him. A bit like Eric Choupo-Moting. Just Rob's favourite stat.
Eric Choupo-Moting has been signed a lot of times, and no one's ever paid any money for him.
No, PSG would chuck money at anything, and they refuse to pay for him.
They were. Oh dear! Didn't they once sign Benjamin Stambouli?
From Spurs, I think actually.
Oh dear.
Jeez. So Malouda on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, anything to say on him, Hugh? I mean, we all liked him.
I think part of those signings that Abramovich made in the when he came over in 2004-05, I think he was the one that sort of went under the radar a bit, and yet in those late 2000s was a key part of the Chelsea side on the left.
Yeah,
there was one season he got 15 goals, 15 assists. I think it was 2009.
I'll put it down as 12 goals and 8 assists in 33 appearances. What I've got.
Maybe it was all competitions.
Stats man Joe Massetti this week, as it turns out.
Yeah, I think with that Chelsea team, that the core was so good. They're the team. They're the players you focus on: the Lampard, Terry, Drogba.
Yeah.
But Malouda added so much to that side.
Malouda was good. He was silky as well. Like, he was nice to watch.
He was a real favourite, I think, of Ancelotti. I think he was, and that double winning side. And actually, the side Ancelotti, God, don't get me started on why he was sacked, because I think that was ridiculous. But Malouda was such a key part. I think he then fell foul of that little period where they had Scolari and AVB and Grant, all those other managers. I think he fell foul of that period where there was a lot of instability, and I don't think a lot of the managers that then followed Ancelotti, I don't think rated him, and he kind of faded into obscurity, which is partly why I think he's forgotten about. And I think he actually stayed at Chelsea past his sell-by date. So after it was clear that he wasn't fancied, rather than move on and go to an Everton or a Stoke or someone, he stayed at Chelsea, just sat in the reserves, which is a real shame because, when he was at his best, he was a really, really good player.
Agreed. I think probably a player that we probably have certainly plenty to say about is Edin Dzeko. Someone we all think is. I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who's watched football for the last 10, 15 years who doesn't think Dzeko is underappreciated in his time at City.
Yeah, but I say particularly that period, it was difficult, I suppose, for him because obviously Aguero was the better player. I'd say Aguero is, and then he also equally still in the limelight. He had Mario Balotelli for different reasons, but he was obviously a much more public figure.
You mean like setting off fireworks in his own house?
Driving around in his camo Bentley dressed as Father Christmas, giving out money, stopping at a women's prison so he could go and have a look around, and the list goes on. And he's just a forgotten about player. And his goals to game ratio was fantastic. He's been really, really good at Roma. He scored a couple of great goals. I think it was when they knocked out Barcelona, I think, in fact. A couple of years ago, he was key in that, and just possibly Bosnia and Herzegovina's best ever player.
Yeah. I think the fact that he's also done it in other leagues.
Yes.
He did it at Wolfsburg. He's now doing it at Roma. I think he was the first player to score 50 goals in 3 of the big European leagues.
Another good stat, Hugh, even before stats.
To be fair, I'm actually surprised as well. I'm actually genuinely surprised he scored 50 Premier League goals in a way. He was on the bench.
He scored exactly 50.
Even so, because he was very much the second choice striker. And to still get 50 goals, effectively.
Very much so. He was the archetypal super sub.
He was a Solskjaer type-esque player. And actually, I think he's probably the best second striker City have ever had. He's better than Jesus. He was certainly better than Negredo. He was better than Wilfred Boney.
Ian Acho.
Honestly, Wilfred Boney was, not as ridiculous as Balotelli, but him singing songs about himself on YouTube and stuff. Oh dear.
He also scored, I guess, the second most important goal in City's history, right before Aguero scored the winner. He scored the equaliser.
Yeah.
So you got to take that into consideration, I think.
Very much. A lot of other big clubs would have liked him in that period. Would you have taken him at Liverpool, Rob? I suspect you would in that period.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, in the period where we had God knows who playing up front.
Ricky Lambert,
really
Fabio Borini.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he just kind of offers that different option, doesn't he? Like a target man. That's the thing. You after an hour or so put him on, and then the defenders suddenly have to adapt their entire game.
But he's also a target man. Actually, he's quite good on the foot. So, for example, I gave it when Spurs had Llorente. I thought Llorente at his peak was a wonderful player. The time he got to Spurs, obviously, he was slightly diminished, but he was very much a proper out-and-out target man. Whereas what Dzeko brought was a target man who was also good with his feet. Whereas I think actually he would have been the perfect player for Spurs to sign. And probably a bit out of budget, but he could have been a perfect foil for Spurs. I really think. In that period as well.
Oh, definitely. He's a seriously dangerous player. He scored all sorts of goals, Jack. He's 6'3", 6'4", so he scored a lot of headers, but plenty of other bangers as well. No, seriously good. Seriously good. Well, that essentially concludes our 11. There's obviously going to be disagreements among the numerous hundreds of fans watching. But
once again, just a reminder of the hotline for that, and that is alexsnook@hotmail.com.
Yeah, he actually likes complaints, so feel
free. He's also promised to respond to each and every one of them with a poem.
Yeah, personally.
With a poem about why you're wrong. So do get in touch.
Do get in touch with him. He's he likes it. In any case, right. Well, the 11 as stands: Tim Krul, Laurent and Sylvester as fullbacks, with Daniel Agger and Steve Bruce in the middle. Ray Parlour and Wijnaldum with Cahill just behind a front three of Albright and Malouda and Dzeko. It's not a well-beating 11, but it's a really good, decent 11 of players who were and still are in some cases underrated, I think.
Where do you think that side would come in the Premier League today?
That's a great question.
I reckon top 6.
I think this is a top 6 side. I don't think it's an absolute kind of Champions League winning team, but I think they do pretty well. I think,
Europa League
I
places.
think it might challenge for fourth spot, but I certainly don't see it beating Liverpool and City.
Oh God,
no. But
It's-
given
yeah.
how Spurs and Arsenal have been in the last year or two, so up and down, like
United
they
as
could
well.
they could sneak into fourth or fifth.
It almost screams like Sheffield United to me. Just
Yeah.
like a team
Or
of players who, yeah, on their day, I mean, if you'll pardon the pun, could be world class.
We'll probably have to post that video on the page at some point.
I'll do that this week. Don't worry.
Yeah, Robbie Savage has come up with a number of excellent quotes. I actually really like Robbie Savage. He gets
Yeah, I think
a
so.
lot of stick, but he's a funny bloke. In any case, right, that's our 11. So we'll end this section there with anticipation of Hugh's stats corner. Right, well, Hugh, how are things over in Stats Corner?
Thanks, Anton. So I guess before we get cracking on this week's stuff, we should address the answer to last week's question. To remind you all, the question was, aside from Bobby Zamora, which player is the only person in the Premier League to have scored a penalty with both feet? There were some suggestions, I think, that you guys proffered last week, but we never got it. And the answer was the Newcastle legend, Obafemi Martins. So there you go.
Well, I never.
Had him on FIFA 04, my first ever FIFA. What a game.
My first FIFA as well, actually.
Oh, there you go.
I also enjoy
So, moving on.
that relies on the fact that someone made it that far in the last episode and that far in this episode as well.
I was gonna say.
True.
Yeah.
So when Tom Stebbing is watching this at work,
Yeah.
hi there, Tom. How you doing, mate? Hope you're having a nice day.
Oh dear. All right. Well, thanks for that, Hugh. What have you got coming this week? Is it another quiz question?
Of course, yes. So this week's quiz question was based on the fact that I found out that Steve Bruce had scored 13 goals in a Premier League season, which I thought was a bit crazy for a centre back.
That's insane.
So I wanted to have a look about which players had scored the most goals without reaching double figures in a single season. So I found out that this year James Milner equalled that record of 57 Premier League goals without reaching double figures in a single season. I want to know whose record he equalled.
Shola Amiobi, I reckon.
It's not Shola Amiobi, no,
Ooh.
sadly.
This is a very interesting question. Someone who scored 57 goals.
Are they still playing currently?
They're not still playing currently.
Surely it's got to be a midfielder, isn't it?
It's got to be a midfielder or a rubbish striker.
Oh yeah, it could be a rubbish striker.
Victor Anichebe.
I was going to say someone like Victor Anichebe.
I think
wish it was.
Amiobi got more goals than Anichebe, surely.
I think I saw Anichebe hit the back of the net about twice. So it's not.
He certainly didn't score that many.
No, he did
How
not.
many did Kevin Davis get? Did he ever hit double figures? He must have hit double figures, surely. Oh, what about someone like Kevin Nolan?
Ooh, it's not a bad shout.
I know that Kevin Nolan holds the record for the most Premier League appearances without an England cap.
Very good.
I'm pleased that you know that.
What about Mark Noble? How many has he got? He must. Yeah. What about Mark Noble?
He's got quite a lot. He's still playing though. You said he's not playing.
Oh, sorry. You
right
say
now,
he's not playing.
He's
still.
not playing.
Oh god, this is gonna be really bugging me.
Yeah.
57 league goals. It implies longevity.
57 league goals.
I mean, if it's under 10 a season, he's got to be playing for
At least 6
at
seasons.
least 6 or 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'll leave you
no,
to stew on that,
yeah,
and then-
let us.
Oh, hang on.
Oh.
What, Clint Dempsey?
How about Clint Dempsey? No, that's not correct.
That's not a bad
No.
shout. I bet he snuck into double figures once or
Yeah,
twice.
like 11 or 12 one season. Yeah.
No.
All
Okay.
right, well, let us
Well,
mull
well-
that over for a bit, Hugh, and we'll come back for a few suggestions at the end.
Okey-doke. So the random stat of the week that I found, I was actually found this while researching goals per game ratios for Edin Dzeko, because I thought, well, he scored loads of goals in not very in a very short amount of time. So I thought, who's got the best goals per game ratio in the Premier League? And it turned out it was Thierry Henry, which is quite unsurprising. But if you look further down the list, you'll actually find in third place in goals per game in Premier League history is Adam Lafondra.
I was actually going to say I was going to say another Reading. I was going to say Pavel Pogrebniak.
I don't
Adam
think he's anywhere
Lafondra.
near. But it's Adam. So Adam Lafondra,
He's in
Premier
third
League,
place.
third
He probably got about 10 goals from about 20 appearances or something. It's something like that. It'll be something like that.
He scored 8 goals as a substitute in the Premier League. So he's got 12 overall, and minimum goals 10. I think this is. And yeah, he actually won the Player of the Month once in that time as well.
Oh.
But do you want to know another weird fact about Adam Lafondra? His name isn't actually Adam Lafondra. His real name is Glenville Lafondra.
Well, Boris Johnson's actual name is Alexander.
Well, there you go. And Joe
Glenville.
Hart's name is actually Charles Hart.
Is it?
Well,
Yeah.
like Adam Lafondra, Glenville's quite an odd name, so maybe you just want to change it for that. But Joe Hart has changed it from Charles
Yeah,
to
his
Joe
name-
for seemingly unknown
name is-
reasons.
I think it's his middle name.
Okay.
You know Calvin Harris's real name is Adam Wiles.
I didn't know
I
that.
didn't know that, but I did know his name wasn't Calvin Harris.
Yeah, but I don't get that. If you can have like a stage name, at least make it something like I don't know.
Stormzy. Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting little niche fact. I mean, they
That
got relegated.
That is very
So,
niche.
Yeah, they got
Clearly,
relegated.
they came 19th.
Didn't help
So
much,
yeah,
but-
didn't help him. But yeah, so he's up there, third.
He's
best
one that I
goal.
suspect we wouldn't have guessed in third place.
Yeah, I did think about doing that for the quiz, but I thought that might be a bit too.
That'll probably be
tricky for you
too
guys.
difficult. I mean, going back to that, I mean, I bet this is someone that we'll all probably be kicking ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, it's someone who you know well.
Mikel Arteta.
Roy Keane.
Mikel Arteta, another underrated player who we didn't mention.
Yeah,
but
he's underrated.
that's sadly
he didn't
not.
score quite that many goals.
Vieira.
Not Vieira, or I think you said Roy Keane. Not him either.
Nicky Butt. What? He played years.
He did play years.
He did.
But I don't
All
think
he'd have had to do is get 5 goals a season, and he'd be,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
true.
thereabouts. David
Is it
Beckham?
John Terry?
It's not John.
No, he got
Terry.
about 30, I think. What about someone
Yeah.
like, I was going to say Beckham. But maybe he got over
No,
10.
Beckham's got quite a few more, I think.
Well, we've not got it, and again, well, you'll probably tell us after this, Hugh, but we'll make it look like next time we do a recording that we haven't heard the answer.
Yeah,
But
it'll be a shock for whoever gets that far in the podcast.
Yeah,
And
again.
If you haven't unsubscribed by next week, you will find out.
Although, I mean, half the subscribers currently are us. So I won't be unsubscribing. I hope no one else will. But
I will be. I'm fed up with these quizzes. They're too hard.
Right, excellent. So one of the members is actually unsubscribing from the podcast already, which is good. I think that transitions us quite nicely into the end of another excellent, gripping week of footballing and probably largely not footballing rubbish. But thank you for sticking with us for those who did. Again, stay safe, stay inside. Kafka, maybe not. Joe, any recommendations for those who have made it this far before we
Yeah, I just, stay safe. Crack out the old J.K. Rowling. Give yourself
J.K.
a good
Rowling.
read. Make a ratatouille.
Which one are you on?
I'm
Right.
currently reading the Tales of Beedle the Bard, which I've never read. It's a
I've never even heard of it, to be honest.
spin-off. It's a spin-off from Harry Potter. I never read it as a child, but it was on my bookshelf for years. I thought, give that a read, see how we get on. Have a quiz, go for a run. And other than that, oh shit, we forgot about Eduardo up front.
Stop. We'll sign off there, and we shall return in a couple of weeks' time with another enthralling footballing topic.